Today I want to talk about Android features that disappeared. Some were loved, some were confusing, and some were removed as Android changed direction. Let's start with instant apps, one of the most futuristic Android ideas Google ever tried. You could open a small part of an app without installing the full thing, tap a link, try a game, book something, read something, or use a service for a moment, and Android would load only the piece you needed. It sounded perfect for people who hated downloading random apps just to use them once, and for developers, because it reduced the distance between discovering an app and trying it. But the real world was not as clean as the demo. Instant apps required developers to build smaller, modular experiences. Many apps were too large, too complex, or too dependent on accounts and payments to make a quick, instant version feel natural. Users also did not always understand what was happening. Was the app installed? Was it temporary? Would it stay on the phone? Starting in December 2025, Google Play Instant is no longer available for publishing instant apps through Google Play, and the related Instant AP is no longer work. Instant apps were not just hidden away. The Play-based version of the idea has been shut down. Next is Android Beam, and this one is pure Android nostalgia. If you used Android in the ice cream sandwich and jelly bean era, you might remember tapping two phones back to back and sending something with NFC, a photo, a contact, a web page, a map location, or a YouTube video could be pushed from one device to another. The idea was charming because it felt physical. You did not search through menus or create a link. You literally touched two phones together, waited for the vibration, and tapped the screen. The problem was that Android Beam was never the fastest or most reliable way to share. It required both phones to have NFC, both phones to be awake, and both users to know the feature existed. As sharing systems improved, Android Beam started to feel old. In Android 10, Google officially deprecated Android Beam and said it was no longer in active development, even though device makers could still choose to include it for a while. Later, Google pushed people toward Nearby Share, which eventually became part of the broader Quick Share direction. Android Beam had personality, but Quick Share is more practical. Still, Android Beam is missed because it made sharing feel like a secret Android handshake. Now let's talk about the notification ticker. Before Android 5.0 Lollipop, notifications could appear as scrolling text in the status bar. You would be using your phone, and a message preview would quietly move across the top edge without taking over the screen. It was small, subtle, and very Android. It did not block buttons, cover your app, or demand attention like modern banners do. Then Lollipop arrived with a huge visual redesign and introduced heads-up notifications. These floating alerts appeared over the current app, especially for important messages, calls, and urgent updates. They were more visible and easier to act on, but the old ticker basically disappeared from the stock Android experience. A lot of users hated that change because the ticker was less distracting. If you were watching a video, typing, reading, or gaming, a tiny line of text was easier to ignore than a pop-up floating over your content. Google clearly wanted notifications to become richer and more interactive, and over time, Android notifications became more powerful than ever. But the ticker represented a quieter style of phone software. It is remembered because it stayed out of the way. The fourth feature is Trusted Face. This was part of Android's older smart lock world, where your phone could stay unlocked or unlock more easily when it recognized certain trusted conditions. Trusted Face used the front camera to recognize you and reduce the need to enter a PIN, pattern, or password. It felt convenient, especially before fingerprint sensors became common on every price level. You looked at your phone, and if the software thought it was you, the device could unlock. But Trusted Face had a major weakness. It was not the same as secure, three-dimensional face authentication. It was camera-based, and older camera-based face unlock systems could be less reliable and less secure than fingerprint authentication or more advanced face unlock hardware. Over time, Android security standards became more serious, especially around biometrics used for unlocking, payments, and password managers. Around the Android 10 era, Trusted Face disappeared from many devices. This does not mean Face Unlock vanished from Android forever. Some phones still have Face Unlock, and some modern implementations are much stronger, but the old smart lock feature called Trusted Face is gone. It belonged to an era when Android was more willing to offer convenience features even if they were not strong enough for today's security expectations. One of the most memorable things Android left behind was Blob Emojis. For years, Google's emoji did not look like Apple's round yellow faces. They looked like little soft blobs. Some were goofy, some were awkward, and some were adorable. They gave Android an instantly recognizable personality. When you saw those blob shapes, you knew it was Google's world. The blobs became memorable because emoji are emotional. A smile, a laugh, an angry face, or a weird expression can change the meaning of a message. But emoji also needed to become more consistent across platforms. If an emoji looked too different on Android than it did on iPhone, the emotional meaning could shift. A face that looked silly on one platform might look serious on another. With Android 8.0 Oreo in 2017, Google replaced the blob style with more standard circular faces and more human-shaped characters. Many people still miss the blobs because they gave Android character, but the change made sense for clarity. The funny part is that Google knows people are nostalgic for them. Blob-style designs have returned in small ways through sticker-style experiences, but the original system emoji look is no longer the default Android identity. Next is Now on Tap, one of the smartest Android features that never reached its full potential. It arrived with Android 6.0 Marshmallow. The idea was that your phone could understand the context of whatever was on your screen. You could be reading a message about a restaurant, holding the home button, and Android would show useful cards like directions, reviews, or booking links. You could be looking at a movie title, a song, a person, or a place, and Now on Tap would try to help without forcing you to copy text, open search, and type everything again. At its best, Now on Tap felt magical. It made Android feel like the system was aware of what you were doing, but it was also inconsistent. Sometimes it understood the screen perfectly, sometimes it showed generic results, sometimes it did not know what mattered, and soon after, Google shifted its energy toward Google Assistant. Assistant was broader, more conversational, and better aligned with where Google wanted search and voice control to go. As Assistant spread across phones, speakers, cars, watches, and smart home devices, Now on Tap lost its place. Some screen search ideas survived in other forms, but the specific Now on Tap experience faded away. Looking back, it feels like a bridge between old Google search and the assistant-based future. Then there are the Android dessert names. This one was not a technical feature, but it was a huge part of Android culture. For years, Android releases had sweet names. These names made Android updates feel fun. People guessed the next name, argued about possible desserts, and waited for Google's statue reveal. It gave the operating system a playful identity that separated it from the plain numbering of many other platforms. But in 2019, Google changed the public naming system. Android Q became Android 10, and public dessert names were dropped. Google explained that the dessert names were not always clear for a global audience. Some desserts were not familiar everywhere, and some letters or words could be confusing in different languages. For a system used by billions of people, numbers were simpler, so Android became Android 10, Android 11, Android 12, and so on. Internally, Google has still used dessert-style codenames, but for normal users, the sweet era ended with Android Pie. This removal made Android feel more mature, but also a little less fun. Now let's move to Google Play Music. This was not only an Android feature, but for a long time it was one of the core Google apps many Android users associated with their phones. Google Play Music was a streaming service, a music store, and a personal music locker. You could upload your own music library and stream it from the cloud. For people with old MP3 collections, rare tracks, or local files, this was incredibly useful. But Google had a music problem. It had Google Play Music, YouTube, YouTube Music, and later YouTube Premium. The company eventually decided that YouTube Music would be the future. In 2020, Google announced that YouTube Music would replace Google Play Music by December of that year. Users were given tools to transfer libraries, playlists, recommendations, and uploads. Then Google Play Music shut down. For some users, YouTube Music was fine. For others, it never felt like a perfect replacement, especially for library management and uploaded music habits. Google Play Music is remembered because it was not just about streaming recommendations. It was also about bringing your own music collection with you. The ninth feature is Nearby Notifications. This was Google's attempt to make the physical world talk to your Android phone. The idea used nearby signals, such as Bluetooth beacons, to show relevant notifications when you were near a place or object. A museum could show a guide. A bus stop could show transit information. A store could show an app or web link. You would not need to scan a code or search manually. Android would notice the nearby context and offer something useful. That sounds convenient, but the reality quickly became messy. Notifications are sensitive. People already get too many of them. If nearby places can trigger alerts, the quality has to be extremely high. high. Google eventually found that too many nearby notifications were not useful enough. Some felt like spam, ads, or random interruptions. In October 2018, Google announced that it would discontinue support, and the service stopped serving nearby notifications on December 6, 2018. A proactive feature can be powerful, but only if users trust it. Once it feels like the phone is advertising at you because you walked past something, the feature becomes annoying. Next is Google Allo, another Google messaging app in a long line of Google messaging experiments. Allo launched in 2016 for Android and iOS. It had smart reply, stickers, large and small text effects, incognito chats, and most importantly, Google Assistant built directly into conversations. You could ask Assistant questions inside a chat, make plans, search for information, and get suggestions without leaving the conversation. In many ways, Allo predicted the idea that messaging apps could become smarter and more automated. But Allo had a huge problem. It was yet another messaging app. Google already had Hangouts, SMS through Android messages, Duo for video, and a complicated communication strategy. Allo also did not become the default texting app in the way iMessages default on iPhone. Convincing everyone to install a new chat app is extremely hard. By December 2018, Google said it would stop supporting Allo and focus on messages. Allo continued to work through March 2019, giving users time to export chats. Then it was gone. Some ideas lived on elsewhere, especially smart reply and assistant-style suggestions. But Allo itself became another example of Google building a clever messaging product without solving the network problem. Now we reach Miracast. This one needs a little nuance, because Miracast did not vanish from every Android phone at the same time. Miracast is a wireless display standard. It lets a phone mirror its screen to a compatible TV, streaming stick, or display without needing the internet in the same way cloudcasting does. Android added wireless display support during the Jelly Bean era, and for a while, it seemed like Android would support a fairly open screen mirroring standard. But Google's own direction moved toward Google Cast and Chromecast. On Nexus and Pixel-style Google devices, Miracast support faded away, and stock Google Android stopped treating it like a central feature. Many manufacturers kept their own wireless display options, so plenty of Samsung, Xiaomi, Huawei, and other devices still supported some form of Miracast or screen mirroring. That is why some Android users remember Miracast as missing, while others say they still have it. Both experiences can be true depending on the device. Google preferred Cast, which works very well inside supported apps and with Chromecast devices, but Miracast fans missed mirroring the whole screen to many kinds of displays without buying into one ecosystem. Now let's talk about built-in Adobe Flash Player support, or more accurately, official Flash support in Android's browser era. In the early smartphone years, Flash was a big selling point for Android. Apple refused to support Flash on iPhone, while Android promoted the ability to view more of the desktop web. With Android 2.2 Froyo and Adobe Flash Player 10.1, Android phones could run Flash content in the browser. At the time, that sounded like a major advantage. Many websites still used Flash for video, games, animations, menus, and interactive content, but Flash was never a perfect fit for phones. It could be heavy, battery-hungry, awkward on touchscreens, and difficult to secure. The web was also moving toward HTML5 video and modern browser standards. Adobe eventually stopped developing Flash Player for mobile browsers. Android 4.1, Jelly Bean did not receive a certified Flash Player implementation, and in August 2012, Flash Player was removed from normal availability on Google Play for new installations. Some people kept sideloading old versions for a while, but official support was over. Android once used Flash support as proof that it could show the real web, but the web itself moved on. The 13th removed feature is install time permissions in the old all-at-once style. Early Android had a very different permission model. When you installed an app, you were shown a list of permissions before installation. If the app wanted location, contacts, storage, microphone, camera, or other sensitive access, you generally accepted the whole package or did not install the app. For power users, this at least made permissions visible, but for most people it was a wall of technical text. They wanted the app, so they tapped accept. Android 6.0 Marshmallow changed that with runtime permissions for dangerous permission categories. Instead of granting everything up front, apps targeting the new model had to ask when the permission was actually needed. A camera app would ask for camera access when you used the camera feature. A Maps app would ask for location when location became relevant. Users could also deny specific permissions and later change them in settings. This was a huge privacy improvement, and Android kept building on it with one-time permissions, permission auto reset, approximate location, notification permission prompts, and more. To be clear, install time permissions did not disappear completely. Android still has normal permissions that can be granted at install time because they are considered lower risk. What disappeared was the old all-or-nothing model for the most sensitive permissions. It was replaced because users needed real control, not a giant permission receipt before they had even opened the app. Next is Android Daydream VR. Do not confuse this with the old Daydream screensaver feature. Daydream VR was Google's mobile virtual reality platform. It arrived in the mid-2010s with Daydream View, a fabric-covered headset, a small motion controller, and a certification program for compatible phones. The dream was that high-end Android phones could become comfortable VR devices. Put the phone into the headset, hold the controller, and enter VR apps, games, YouTube videos, Street View experiences, and more. For a moment, it looked like mobile VR might become a major category. Samsung had Gear VR, Google had Daydream, and phone screens were getting sharper every year. But phone-based VR had limits. It depended on heat, battery life, phone compatibility, and users wanting to put their main communication device into a headset. Standalone VR headsets eventually made more sense because they were built for VR from the start. Google stopped selling the Daydream View headset, newer Pixel phones stopped supporting it, and with Android 11, Google confirmed that the Daydream VR app was no longer supported and might not work properly on devices running Android 11 or later. The idea was exciting, but the phone was not the best long-term home for VR. Finally, we have lock screen widgets. Android introduced lock screen widgets with Android 4.2 Jelly Bean. You could swipe across the lock screen and see widgets for things like calendar, Gmail, messaging, music, weather, or other apps without fully unlocking the phone. This was very Android. It was customizable, powerful, and a little chaotic. If you liked information density, lock screen widgets were amazing. Your phone could show useful content before you even reached the home screen. But the feature also created obvious problems. The lock screen is supposed to protect your information. If widgets show messages, calendar details, or app content before unlocking, privacy becomes tricky. The interface could also feel cluttered. With Android 5.0 Lollipop, Google redesigned the lock screen around notifications, material design, and a simpler visual structure. Lock screen widgets were removed from the main phone experience, and notifications became the primary way to see glanceable information before unlocking. Years later, lock screen widgets started returning in limited modern forms, especially for larger screens and newer Android work, but the original Jelly Bean style feature was gone for a very long time. So now I want to ask you, which removed Android feature do you miss the most, and which one do you think deserved to disappear? Write your answer in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video.